So with a couple of managerial departures this weekend in the Championship, we've got it all to talk over. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Now, we've got loads to go through in today's video. Just the 10 matches that went on over the weekend, as of course we had a couple of them postponed due to the storm. But as well as going over all of those matches, we also have the midweek action to go ahead and preview, which we'll be doing in the second half of the video. Without any further ado, let's jump into these matches. So starting out with an absolutely huge result for Huddersfield in the playoff picture, as they picked up all 3 points away at Craven Cottage, beating them by 2-1. And is this the point in the season where everyone properly takes Huddersfield seriously? Because I must admit that I've been a little bit guilty of this in the past, of thinking that out of each of those sides in the playoff picture, the one that I always thought was most likely to maybe tail off a little bit was going to be Huddersfield. That was just because of on the eye test and watching them a few times so far this season, when they got pulled a couple of results together at times when I thought that maybe a side like Sheffield United or Fulham may get the better of them. But the way they've come out of these last two matches, their defensive record currently, the fact that the unbeaten streak now has been stretched to 13 matches, and the fact that we look at their next upcoming fixtures, I think it's quite a favourable run that Huddersfield have got coming up soon as well. Everything points towards this run continuing for Huddersfield at the moment, which is an absolutely massive testament to the character and how well this team is actually coached at the moment. It was Danny Ward who gave Huddersfield the lead, a penalty, then put them 2-0 up. It was a little bit of a debatable one in terms of that penalty call. I'm sure that Huddersfield fans would agree, but their record from the spot recently has been pretty tragic, so Holmes did well to slot that one away. Fulham obviously get that goal late on into this match, but Fulham not quite at their fit and firing best. Couple of stray passes and things like that just meant that a side that was going to be as structured defensively as Huddersfield were always going to cause them some problems in this one. But that right there, that's going to give them so much momentum, that win, on top of what is already a fantastic unbeaten run. Next then to Ashton Gate, and what a result for Bristol City as they got the better of Middlesbrough by 2-1. Bit of an off day here for Borough, who saw plenty of the ball, had plenty of chances, but were just missing that sort of cutting edge in the final third. For Bristol City, two lovely taken goals, I have to say. The first one, brilliant link up with Semenyo, the provider, to Weimann, and the second one with Weimann turning the provider. But some lovely flicks in the build-up to that one. It sort of felt like that was the real sucker punch at that stage. Middlesbrough didn't look great in the first half. Second half had started to improve a little bit, but that goal there came at a crucial time for Bristol City. Although I'm sure that Bristol City fans were fearing the worst, as Matt Crooks got Borough back into this in the 90th minute with Bristol City's record with holding on to leads. But does sort of feel like a bit of a missed opportunity there for Borough, especially with Forest not playing this weekend. But Middlesbrough go into a really quite interesting game in midweek against a West Brom side who are, quite desperately out of form at the moment. So they'll be looking to bounce back in that one. Bristol City, some lovely attacking play in those moments that counted. Next then to Cardiff up against Blackpool. These two playing out a 1-1 draw. Bit of a game of two halves in this one. I thought that Blackpool probably had the better of that first half. Nice ball in from Charlie Kirk into Ekpiteta, who I didn't actually think would be back and available for this game, but he headed Blackpool 1-0 in front, and there were some other chances in that half for Blackpool to go 2-0 up. Definitely saw an improvement from Cardiff in the second half though. Some nice work down the right hand side for the equaliser as the ball came in. Controversial point of this match comes from the Josh Bowler yellow card, ultimately booked by the referee for diving, and you see it back and it's a difficult one really, because as well I don't think that it's a stonewall penalty, I'm not sure you can also give that as a dive, to be honest with you, because there was some contact in there. I think that Bowler's probably not helped by the way that he sort of gone down and it's looked all a little bit exaggerated and stuff. That probably doesn't play into his case, but to say that was a dive, yeah, I wouldn't agree with. So you guys can debate that one in the comments down below. I'm sure that everyone's seen that back, but finished as a 1-1 draw in the end. Not the worst point in the world for either side here, but yeah, that Bowler moment in the second half will be the talking point. After that, we saw Coventry beating Barnsley by 1-0 thanks to a 93rd minute winner. It looked like Barnsley had held out for a point in this one, and we are starting to see some signs of life from this Barnsley squad, with that win last time out, the addition of Domingos Quina, who we've talked about quite a bit in terms of giving them a little bit more in dynamism in the attacking third. A point in this one whilst it wouldn't have got them out of their current situation, at least would have started to build on some foundations. 4 points from their last 2, they can start to build on a little bit of defensive stability, but that last minute winner from Coventry is a real gut punch there for Barnsley. There were some stand-up performances from Barnsley. I thought that Heelick was really good at the back for this one, in terms of putting his body on the line, reading the game and things like that, because it was Coventry who were very much sort of in the ascendancy, and that mixed in with a little bit of poor finishing meant that it took a 93rd minute to go ahead and win it for Coventry. But I think it was Moon in the end who sort of botched the clearance a little bit. The ball falls to the back post and Coventry get that goal and seal away with all 3 points. So just feels like Barnsley are making those small steps to improving, but it's just not going to be enough, is it? For Coventry, I'm sure they enjoyed the scenes with the last minute winner. And next up, and what a 3 points this could turn out to be for Derby, as they just about got their way past Peterborough in this one. We said that Derby needed to win it, and in the end they've done just that thanks to a Louis Sibley 92nd minute winner. Now, this game had a bit of everything, to be honest with you. Peterborough down to 10 men in the first half, Eberselli causing all sorts of problems down that right hand side. Coulson with his second yellow card gets sent off. Heading into the second half, Tom Lawrence then gets the red card for really quite a stupid reason. At least when Coulson got sent off, he was trying to sort of stop an attack, lunged in when he probably shouldn't have. Lawrence and his red card was just a case of him losing his head a little bit, and probably more so that him missing from this game. The fact that he's going to be missing some pretty pivotal games coming up for Derby is going to be quite the blow, although I suppose the only sort of saving grace is that this is probably the one position where Derby actually do have a little bit of depth in. Sibley can step into that position, Ravel Morrison can come in as well. So from that aspect, Derby have still got a little bit to play with here. Bielik being back as that enforcer in the middle as well, but Morrison linking up with Sibley for the winner. And Louis Sibley, a player who hasn't quite been hitting those heights that we first expected of him when he did burst onto the scene for Derby, has come up with an absolutely priceless goal there to win it for the Derby in this one. The fact that Reading also won this weekend, this game was a must win for Derby, and following on from this, we of course saw Darren Ferguson departing from Peterborough, which I think was ultimately the right decision. I think that was something that has been a pretty long time coming, to be honest with you. It was in quite strange circumstances, really, that he was given the contract extension earlier on in the season. But the name's currently being bandied around in terms of a potential replacement. I've seen Lee Johnson's name being mentioned, Grant McCann, which would be an interesting one, him being back there. Steve Evans, another one that I've seen being mentioned with this one as well. But loads of names I'm sure will be linked, and we'll have a bit more on that over the next few days. But what a result there for Derby. We saw Luton getting back to winning ways as they saw off West Brom by 2-0. This current run of form that West Brom are on now is absolutely dismal stuff. Obviously Steve Bruce coming in hasn't exactly had the desired effect so far. By no means is this his fault, really. We're piling on him because the problems were there way before Bruce, and I think that every West Brom fan could sort of see that coming. And the fact of them being 11th in the table now, in midweek they play Middlesbrough, and it feels like if Borough beat them in that game, the deficit that they're going to have to make up is going to be so big, and the way they're playing at the moment, you can only see them falling lower in the table, which is absolutely crazy, and certainly something that I didn't think I'd be saying at the start of the season, given all the talent that's actually in this squad. But, I mean, West Brom were in the ascendancy, it seemed, in the first half. Couldn't get that breakthrough, though. And as soon as Luton started to turn the screw a little bit in the second half, once again, the cracks appeared in this West Brom side. And that's been an all too familiar pattern with them so far this season. Jerome and Campbell with the goals for Luton. And that win there keeps Luton in the playoff hunt. And these last 2 games have really summed up Luton to a T this season. That disaster they had against Birmingham, and then a much more spirited performance in this one against West Brom. So yeah, Luton still very much in the race for the top 6. West Brom slowly slipping out of it. After that, we finally had Reading getting back to winning ways as they saw off North End by 3-2, and the drama coming out of this one, the fact that Veljko Paunovic actually left the club after winning this game. It was all agreed before the match, and it was all a little bit strange, to be honest with you, but full credit to Reading in this one. They were by far and away the better team, especially for the first hour or so. The first half, there was really only one team in this. I think that first 45 minutes from North End was as bad as I've seen us all season, and it has been a bit of a sticking issue with us, and something that has sort of continued under Ryan Lowe. We don't start games very well, and Reading took full advantage of that. We did say this coming into the preview for this game as well, that Reading will still have moments throughout this season, because there is still immense quality within their forward line. Like, they've got some of the best options in the Championship when it comes to players in the final third. But Lucas João gives Reading the lead after just 2 minutes. He makes it 2 after 19 minutes. Patrick Bauer gets absolutely spun all over the place. I thought this was probably Bauer's worst showing for maybe ever for Preston. I thought he was really quite lackadaisical in a couple of situations. João and Swift then link up for the third goal. Swift, who was a constant thorn on our side throughout this one, really controlling and dictating the tempo. But as soon as North End got that goal back to go 3-1, that's where we started to see a few sort of cracks from this Reading side. You know, Archer made it 3-2, and then from that point onwards, I mean, Preston had chances, which was probably the most frustrating thing. But I think that had we got that equaliser to make it 3-3, it would have been sort of papering over cracks, because North End were really quite poor and didn't show up for at least the first hour of this game, which was really quite disappointing against the Reading side, which was so badly out of form. But yeah, Paunovic departs after, which I don't think many people would have been all too surprised about, maybe because that Reading won this game, but it was all agreed beforehand. What is surprising though is Paul Ince coming in, now not on a permanent basis, just on a sort of interim basis to take the squad for the time being. But from the outside looking in, that seems a little bit strange with Reading in their situation. You know, Derby very much breathing down their necks with that win this weekend. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting few weeks for Reading. But that right there was absolutely needed for them. Next then to QPR up against Hull. A definite improvement from QPR in this one, particularly in the second half when they had really started to grow back into this game with a couple of the changes that Warburton had made, but not quite that win that they were perhaps looking for. It was Marcus Forss with his first goal for Hull City, giving them the lead in the first half. And QPR, like we said in the second half, started to grow into this one. Chair, who will be absolutely, you know, vital for them in this run-in from now on, gets them back into the game. And some controversy in this game with Adoma having the ball in the back of the net, the linesman ruling that one out for offside. It's one of them calls that, if you look at the sort of stills after it, is one of them where in the Premier League, you know, the lines would be getting drawn out, and really was quite too close to call, to be honest with you. So from that aspect, and how things were sort of shifting in the second half in terms of momentum, maybe seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity here for QPR. Saying that, they've stopped the losing streak and now go into what's going to be another quite testing game in midweek against Blackpool. Next up then to Bramall Lane, as Sheffield United climb into the top 6 with a 4-0 hammering over Swansea. First off especially, this was relentless stuff from Sheffield United going forward, and I think that this is an example of just where Swansea are probably at this season. You know, there are going to be matches where, like we saw against Bristol City, where there's some lovely interplay in the final third, Swansea building the ball out from the back, and we're seeing clear signs of this, you know, new philosophy that Russell Martin's building. But on the flip side of that, I still think we've got a few of these games to come, you know, similar to the game away at Stoke, where they're going to be shipping 3 or 4 goals, and ultimately Swansea looked quite naive in this match, and Sheffield United took full advantage. And it was a game that I feel like Sheffield United were in need of, you know, after firing blanks in their last couple of matches, to score 4 goals and be as dominant and concise as they were in the final third gives them a real sort of spring in their step, especially going into a midweek crunch match against Blackburn Rovers, who themselves don't find themselves on a great run of form at the moment. So yeah, 2 great finishes in this one by Gibbs-White. Great finish from Sharp, and probably the pick of the goals going to Baldock with that brilliant strike in the first half. But convincing stuff here from Sheffield United. The unbeaten run goes on for another week, and yeah, that one in midweek against Blackburn is going to be some match. And as the last game to talk over, we had Stoke playing out a 2-2 draw with Birmingham. It's been a bit of a topsy-turvy run for Stoke recently. 3 draws from their last 4 matches, in which they are unbeaten in, but it's just meant that they've not quite been able to make up that ground on the teams above them, and it's felt like, you know, these last couple of matches, you know, both ending as 2-2 draws, have sort of felt like missed opportunities for this Stoke side. It was Birmingham who took the lead in this one though. Some great work from Anil Hernandez, who's been a great addition, into James, who slots in for that first goal. Not sure how much Tyrese Campbell knows about or actually meant the equaliser in this one. Sort of tries to get a touch on it. In the end, that ends up deceiving the goalkeeper. But 1-1 at half time, and then in the second half we see that brilliant bit of magic from Tyrese Campbell. I think that the injury no doubt has affected him, and I think that even with him being sort of back in the squad this season, it has taken him, and it's still taking him a little bit of time to fully get back to that level that he was at previously. But right there in that second goal he scored in this one was a reminder of the sheer quality that he's capable of producing just like that. In on his left foot, absolutely brilliant finish. But once again, Stoke couldn't hold out for all 3 points. Gardner with the equaliser for Birmingham, and a decent point on the road there. You know, another game where Birmingham have scored 2 goals, but it just leaves Stoke in the bottom half of the table and just not making much ground upon the teams above them. But those were all the matches that we had going on over the weekend. Obviously, a couple managerial departures sprinkled in there as well. So do get all your thoughts on all the actions in the comments down below. Like I said, absolutely loads to pick up on at this point in time. Now, without any further ado though, let's hop into the midweek predictions. So heading into the midweek matches, make sure to get your score predictions down below. Starting out with Bristol City up against Coventry. Do you know what? I think I may be edging towards Bristol City in that one. At Ashton Gate at the moment, they've certainly got the goal scoring touch about them. Coventry, a little bit up and down at the moment, but a good win for them in the last minute against Barnsley. Saying that, I am going to edge Bristol City for a 2-1 in that game, and fancy them to get a couple goals. Hull up against Barnsley, I'm just going to edge Hull for a 1-0 in that one. Barnsley have been showing some improvements, but I fancy Hull just to get the better of them in that one, maybe by a 1-goal margin. Middlesbrough up against West Brom. It's an absolutely huge game in West Brom's season, because if they lose this game, the gap between themselves and the top 6 is really going to start to open up, and it's going to get into sort of desperation territory in terms of then clawing back some ground on the teams above them. I know that Middlesbrough lost this weekend, but I'm going to back them to bounce back with a 2-0 home victory in that one. Preston up against Forest. I'm not sure really, because Preston tend to raise our game when we're going up against the sort of, you know, top 6 opposition and things like that. But with Forest having the weekend off, having not played against Bournemouth, Preston looked a little bit jaded against Reading. We tend to start games quite slowly. I do think that an organised manager like Steve Cooper maybe gets the best of Ryan Lowe in this one. I'm going to go 2-1 Forest and hope that I'm proven wrong. Paul Ince's first game in charge of Reading is up against Birmingham. Not an easy match there against the Birmingham side, who definitely have goals about them at the moment. I'm going to go 2-2. I fancy a few goals to be scored in that one. You know, Zhao and Swift really impressed me over the weekend, but Birmingham are certainly no mugs. Derby up against Millwall. Millwall weren't in action over the weekend, but maybe Derby could just about edge that one. Don't get me wrong, the absence of Tom Lawrence is certainly going to hit them, but they do have players who can come in. I'm going to go 1-0 Derby in that game. Fulham up against Peterborough. I'm going to go 5-0 Fulham. Fulham by no means at their sparkling best over the weekend, but this looks like a decent game to go ahead and bounce back in. We'll wait and see if Peterborough get a bounce after Darren Ferguson's departure, but that's a pretty impossible game to be going into with their resources at the moment. Huddersfield up against Cardiff. I'm going to back the unbeaten streak to continue with a 1-0 Huddersfield win. QPR up against Blackpool. I'm going to go for a draw. Blackpool, pretty tough game for QPR to be playing at the moment. They stopped the losing streak with the draw over the weekend. I think it might be another draw in this one. I'm going to go for a 1-1. Sheff Utd up against Blackburn is an absolutely massive game, because Sheffield United will go within touching distance of Blackburn with a win in this game, which is absolutely huge. Blackburn not on a great run of form at the moment. Obviously didn't play at the weekend either. I'm going to go 2-1 Sheff Utd in that game. And then finally with Stoke up against Luton, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Stoke have been having a lot of unhelpful draws lately, and I'm going to fancy the same for that one. So those are my score predictions heading into the midweek fixtures. Obviously we've already had one game which has been called off, so fingers crossed we don't have any more. But as always guys, make sure to get your thoughts and score predictions in the comments down below. That will now wrap it up for today's video, so if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.